Monday, August 7th, 2023, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. We're going to be looking a little bit at science today, whether fusion power, the fusion power breakthrough that the FT is reporting on and has been reporting on for the last year, can really solve all our economic problems, all our problems, right? Will it make everything better and perfect? That's what we're going to look at. And before I start, though, I'd like to talk a little bit about my channel. And this has got a little bit to do with what we're going to talk about later and the purpose of this channel. So what is the purpose of my channel? Well, it's to try to inform the public about the corrupt nature of our well, it's not even a money system anymore, but our currency system, of how the powers that be in government and in the banking sector control the currency to their advantage. And the general public, of course, that has to use that currency, is forced to use that currency. They always lose out. And that's why we are at a point in our economies here in the UK, in the EU, in the US, everywhere around the world, where we still have people who cannot afford their own shelter, people who are going hungry, people who can't heat their homes, or people who can't cool their homes in a hot summer, people who can't move around because they can't afford transport. There's a lot of want still in the world. And I'm not here to say that I'm a socialist and I want to redistribute the wealth. No, I don't think that's the solution either. That's the solution that we're given. You want a free market or socialism? No, what I think we need is an honest system. And if we have governments that can't be trusted to basically make sure that there is a judicial system, that things are done honestly, then we've got no hope. And that's why we're going to look at this fusion power breakthrough. And you probably already know what I'm going to say. But before we do look into that, I want to recommend a couple books that will hopefully help you understand what I'm trying to put across. And one thing my father always said that made a lot of sense to me, and is probably one of the most important things about money, is that he said it doesn't grow on trees, that you can only earn it. You have to create something. You have to, you have to labor, or you have to create something. You have to provide a service, something of value for other people, and then you can earn something. But nowadays, it seems like government and the powers that be try to entice everyone by saying, oh, we're going to give you this and this and this and that. And people have been conditioned into that. So that was the best advice I ever got, that you have to get off your ass. I'm sorry to say it. You got to be disciplined. You got to be honest as well, because if you're not honest, people won't deal with you. You got to be, you got to be hardworking, or sometimes you got to be clever as well. You got to create some value, and you can't expect things to come to you. You got to go and get it. And the other thing is that you have to believe that you can do it. You can't let other people tell you otherwise. So those are, I think, the good kind of advice I got from my father. But the books, though, are more technical, so that you can understand really what they've done to the system, to the banking, the monetary system. I mean, once you read these books, you will think probably, why do we need to bank with these people? Because there's a lot of talk about people being debanked, but do you really want to bank with the institutions that we have? I don't think so. So the first one, and many of you already have read this book, but to the new subscribers, and I would say as well to the people who have just started watching me, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do. But first one is What Has Government Done to Our Money? By Murray and Rothbard. I think it's a great book. You will understand how important money is, how it came about, what was there before money, and you understand why we don't have money in the system right now. And it might sound weird, but yeah, read the book. If you're interested, of course, I'm going to put a free PDF in the description. You might want to buy it as well. I'll put a link to the Mises Institute. Mises Institute is a great institution of learning in Auburn, Alabama. They espouse the Austrian School of Economics. The second one as well is more about a just society, and it's by Frederick Bastiat, and it's called The Law. The classic blueprint for a just society. And on the inside jacket, it says here, the state, he declared, and perhaps his most memorable epigram, is that great fiction by which everyone tries to live at the expense of everyone else. So there you go. And I think, unfortunately, nowadays, too many people expect the state to do everything for them. I know there are people out there who are unfortunate that need help, but the vast majority of people are quite healthy and they're able. Anyway, back to fusion power breakthrough. And the FT made a big deal out of it. They put it on the front of their website, I think yesterday. They did it last year, and I noticed the stories both times. So fusion power, I mean, from what I understand, it's basically replicating what happens in the sun, and the potential for creating clean, it's very clean energy. There's no radioactive emissions from it. The potential is huge, but it looks like there's still decades of more research to do. And this is what the article says. Federal laboratory experiment produces more energy than during landmark tests last year. So they've been trying this for a long time. The problem was that they're not getting as much energy out of this experiment as they're putting into it. And you need that, of course, if you're going to create a source of energy. So last year they succeeded. It looks like this year they've been able to increase the amount of energy. So just read to you what fusion is. Fusion is achieved by heating two hydrogen isotopes, usually deuterium and tritium, to such extreme temperatures that the atomic nuclei fuse, releasing helium and vast amounts of energy in the form of neutrons. So that's basically, I think, what happens in the sun. I might be wrong. I'm not a scientist. But what's interesting here, they've got the some diagrams about the experiment, and it says inertial confinement fusion. The U.S. government's National Ignition Facility in California uses lasers to ignite a fusion reaction. So this is the contraption they use here, and it says a gold cavity with openings at either end called a Hohlraum. So why do they use gold? Well, because gold is very solid. It doesn't melt, and it withstands high temperatures. So am I saying you should buy gold because of that? No, but it just goes to show how gold is important. It's in this experiment. So I'll leave it at that. So the question at the beginning of the video is, will the fusion power breakthrough solve all our problems? And what do I mean by solving all our problems? Well, it's whether people will be free from want, because that's how I see problems being solved. But And you see that this experiment is conducted by the federal government, right? So the first thing I thought, well, the government is involved, and you might think, oh, you're always against government. But I saw this meme as well the other day, and I've seen this meme several times, but I took a screenshot of it, and it says, before 1913, Americans kept all of their income. Despite this, we had schools, roads, railroads, and the military. So there you go. And what's that got to do with fusion power breakthrough? Well, the point I'm trying to make here is that until people learn about how the governments and the bankers extract wealth from you through the fiat currency system that indebts people, indebts the nation, I don't think any kind of breakthrough is going to solve our problems. All it's going to do is give more control to the people at the top. You saw that this fusion breakthrough experiment is conducted by the federal government. And you might think, well, the federal government is for us, for the American people. But I don't think so. I think, unfortunately, the federal government has been hijacked probably since around the time of World War I, 1913-14. And of course, that was when the Federal Reserve Act went through Congress in December 23rd, 1913. That's when the First World War happened. So whenever there's a big crisis, a war, governments gain a lot more power, and especially when they have a central bank. So with that, I wanted to show you this interactive timeline of the US national debt. And as you see here, average debt by decade, and you look at from 1900 up until World War I, the public debt to GDP was very low. I think the highest in that period was in 1900. It was 6.6% of GDP. Can you imagine that? Back in 1916, it was still 2.7% of GDP. But after the war, you can see here, World War I, it jumped up to 33.4%. And I don't think it would have been able to do that if the Federal Reserve hadn't been created in 1913. They would have had to do something else to make sure that the government debt was bought by some kind of institution. Or they would have had to force something onto the public to carry that debt. And it's interesting, isn't it, that that meme I showed you earlier, people had a pretty good standard of living. The government was small, and there's no income tax. And it's interesting as well that the Inland Revenue was created or reactivated in 1913. And during the Civil War, there was no central bank, but the legal tender laws were created, so they were able also to inflate. But you would think that after World War I, the debt would shrink back down, and it did, as you can see there. But then you got World War II, and then it shrunk again, and now it's rising again. And it's getting out of hand, of course, and I think these CBO projections are probably very conservative. And so what I'm trying to say here is that you shouldn't wait for the government to do anything for you. You shouldn't wait for the government to have a breakthrough in fusion power. You shouldn't wait for the government to do anything else, because since 1913, one could argue that, we've had a lot of breakthroughs, technological advances, and people are still going hungry. People still can't afford their houses. Young people still can't afford a decent education. Elderly people can't afford a comfortable retirement. So I think it's all got to do with the money, and anything they try to tell you that is going to solve all these problems, I think you should take it with a big pinch of salt. So before we look at the markets, I want to go through some quotes here. One is from a former director of the Bank of England, Sir Josiah Stamp, and he was alive from 1880 to 1941, and this is what he said about the current monetary system, the central banking model. Banking was conceived in iniquity and was born in sin. The bankers own the earth. Take it away from them, but leave them the power to create money, and with the flick of the pen, they will create enough deposits to buy it back again. Well, that's QE, and he said that back probably over about 100 years ago. I think that was a speech he made to the University of Texas, of all places. And then we have a quote by Thomas Jefferson, and some people say he didn't say this, but even if he didn't say it, whoever made this up, I think it makes sense. It says Thomas Jefferson, in a letter to John Taylor, condemns the system of banking as a blot on the Constitution, as corrupt, and that long-term government debt was swindling future generations. And I think President Jackson, Andrew Jackson, tried to, destroy the power of the bankers. He paid the national debt, but unfortunately, they have a lot of cunning. They're very clever, and I think the most important thing, though, from my perspective as running a YouTube channel trying to inform the public, is that you learn about what money really is, and the fact that money is just a representation of all your efforts. And I think Marx and the socialist communist dialectic of capital versus labor does a lot of damage to all of us, because I think capitalists start from somewhere by laboring. So it's all the same. Capital is just if you're able to do some labor or whatever, do some service and be able to save some of your money, then you can invest that money into capital goods. Make sure if you want to understand what's really going on with the money, that you read this book. And in terms of the just society and what government should really be doing, I would say this book. He talks about the concept of legal plunder, basically that governments take from Peter to pay Paul. And that's what we have, not just here in the UK, but everywhere around the world. So there you go. With that, we're going to look at the markets this morning. It's 8:20 a.m. London time. And why do I say London time? Well, because I'm in the UK. I live in Greater London. And I also used to work in the city of London, in the financial markets, believe it or not. But anyway, we've got spot gold at 1937. It's down just over $5. The high's been 1948 and the low has been 35. Spot silver is trading at 23, sorry. I wish 93. 23.50. It's down 13 cents, 0.5%. High's been 73 and the low 42. So the stock markets on Friday, they had a really sharp turnaround downward. We saw Apple stock drop quite sharply. And a lot of people were thinking, oh, how's the market going to open on Monday? Are we going to crash? Well, right now, the Dow is up 120 points. The NASDAQ is up 100. And the S&P up 21. I think it's called a PPT, the Plunge Protection Team. I'm not sure this is going to last, in the next 12 hours or so. I think by the end of the day, it's going to be in the red. That's my bet. To the currencies, sterling is down 0.1%, 127.34. The euro is down 0.2 at 109.85. The dollar is up 0.25% versus the yen, 142.16. And the dollar is up 0.2 versus the yuan at 720.20. Aussie dollar is up slightly versus the dollar at 65.80. The dollar is down, well, it's unchanged really versus the Canadian dollar, 133.72. I think it's a national holiday today in Canada. And we've got the Kiwi dollar up 0.2 at 61.07. Let's look at the commodities. Crude oil, WTI is unchanged at 82.50. Brent is up slightly at 86.10. Platinum is unchanged, trading around 927. And high-grade copper is down 0.2 at 387.50. So let's check the bond markets. They're very important, of course. They're at the base of the current financial system. The 10-year yield in the US is up 2 basis points at 408. The 2 years up 4 at 482. Let's check the Japanese bond market, because that's been making some waves of recent. The 10-year JGB yield has dropped about 3 basis points. It's at 0.61. I wonder if the Bank of Japan has probably been buying some. I would say so. I'll have to check and I'll let you know tomorrow. But I wouldn't be surprised. So now let's look at the UK bond market, the gilts, and see what that's doing out there. We got the 2-year. That's up. That's up at 498, just below 5%. It says here it's up 11 basis points. I'm not sure that it went down so much on Friday, but anyway, we're still stuck around 5%. They've been able to contain it a bit. And the 10 years at 445, it's up 7 basis points. So with that, I'm going to wish you all a very good day. Take care. Bye.